For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. It's day 2 of a NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg outlined a path for Ukraine to gain membership into NATO, but fell short of an invitation, citing the ongoing war with Russia.
We reaffirmed that Ukraine will become a member of NATO and agreed to remove the requirement for a membership action plan. This will change Ukraine's membership path from a two-step process to a one-step process. We also made clear that we will issue an invitation for Ukraine to join NATO when allies agree and conditions are met.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky had blasted a lack of a timeline for membership to the 31-nation alliance, but accepted the terms of the new guidelines, his comments translated by Al Jazeera.
Today, the G7 countries can confirm security guarantees for Ukraine, and I think, and we will work hard towards that this will become a concrete success for us. We can state that the results of the summit are good, but had we received an invitation, they would have been perfect.
The group of 7 industrialized nations have announced new long-term commitments of military assistance for Ukraine. Russia called the G7 plan extremely ill-judged and potentially dangerous. The Biden administration's plan to send cluster munitions to Ukraine is likely a topic at the summit. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are getting behind an effort to block the Biden administration from sending cluster munitions to Ukraine. At the House Rules Committee, ranking Democrat Jim McGovern Tuesday spoke in support of legislation he's backing to block that transfer.
Cluster munitions are totally indiscriminate. They don't distinguish between a Russian soldier, a Ukrainian soldier, a woman, a child, or other civilians. They oftentimes, the unexploded ordnances remain for long periods of time. Mudslides, floods, move things around. And there are real reasons why these weapons are banned in over 100 countries. But sadly and badly, if we go through with this, the U.S. Will have joined Russia and Syria as rogue nations that are using these banned weapons. And
Florida Republican Matt Gaetz with the Freedom Caucus is also supporting the initiative.
I've heard our colleagues who support this decision defend cluster bombs. It seems to fall into 2 categories. One, well, Russia's using them and has them. Like, if just because Russia has something, we're going to give it to Ukraine. Like, what are we going to send tactical nuclear weapons next? Is the objective here to get Ukraine on some sort of military parity with Russia? And then the second argument made in favor of the cluster bombs is, well, they're only going to use them in their own country. How craven and depraved is that? We are still cleaning up cluster bombs now in Laos because of the high dud rate. These things go down and you're going to have children with lost limbs.
Matt Gaetz. A new grand jury sworn in Tuesday in Atlanta will likely consider whether criminal charges are warranted for former President Donald Trump or his allies for their efforts to overturn Trump's 2020 electoral loss in Georgia. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis has been investigating that since shortly after Trump called Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to ask him to find just enough votes to beat Democrat Joe Biden. The investigation expanded to include examination of a slate of Republican fake electors, other phone calls to Georgia officials, and unfounded allegations of widespread election fraud. Willis is expected to present her case before one of 2 grand juries that was seated Tuesday. Iowa's Republican-led legislature passed a bill banning most abortions after roughly 6 weeks of pregnancy. Republican Governor Kim Reynolds said in a statement she will sign the bill Friday. The AP's Donna Warder has more.
The vote came following a marathon session Tuesday that continued into the night. Protesters on both sides gathered at the Capitol carrying signs that said, "Save innocent beating hearts" and "Hands off my uterus." Just after 11 p.m. local time, lingering protesters in the gallery booed and yelled shame to state senators in the minutes after they approved the bill that bans most abortions once cardiac activity can be detected. Governor Kim Reynolds ordered the rare session after the state Supreme Court declined in June to reinstate an almost identical law that she signed in 2018. I'm Donna Warder.
A scorching heat wave forecast to reach triple digits is spreading across the Southwest this week to Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and Southern California, causing excessive heat warnings. In Arizona, the National Weather Service said Phoenix reached 110 degrees for the 12th consecutive day Tuesday. It's nearing the longest record stretch of 18 days that was recorded in 1974. The European Union's parliament has backed a major plan to protect nature and fight climate change. The legislation is part of the EU's European Green Deal and would bind restoration targets for specific habitats and species, with the aim to cover at least 20% of the region's land and sea areas by 2030 with conservation efforts. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.